Now we are live. Hello, everybody. Once again, we're back to Raise2Launch podcast, where Tomas and I do both bring our differing perspectives on having grown and launched and scaled a number of companies. And today, based off a lot of conversations we've been having recently with companies we're working with and founders we've been advising and talking to, I think it's a good time to talk about how to scale your actual revenue teams. And when it's the appropriate time to hire somebody to help you scale up revenue in your business. And I think before we even dive into when is the right time, who do you hire, all those questions, what's the very first thing you should be asking yourself when you're trying to figure out when do I hire a revenue person in my company?
I think the first thing you need to ask yourself, am I a revenue generating co-founder or not? So it starts with that. And then most founders don't really evaluate that. Are they more product focused or are they more business focused? Are they able to generate revenue? How much revenue they can generate? And where their own bottleneck is? Because certainly as a founder, you will generate revenue easier. So before you even hire somebody or thinking to scale with somebody, you need to know your targets, your capabilities, your level of involvement in this.
Yeah, I agree. I do think it's worth noting for any startup that has reached even the tiniest bit of success, even the most programmer product doesn't want to be a salesperson founder will probably be revenue generating. Just because I remember when I was the first non-tech hire at Unito, this is 7 years ago, right? There was the founder, the CEO, Mark, whose background was in comp science, the two lead engineers, Eric and John, who were both developers for 20 years, and then a 5-person engineering team. That was it. And you would say, oh, they had no revenue generating team members, but the CEO, the CTO, the VP of engineering would show up on sales calls. They would sell, even though it wasn't their comfort zone. And there is, as you're building out a revenue team, odds are if your business makes any money, you as a founder or a co-founder were part of it. But what is your comfort? What do you want to be doing? Where should your focus be? And what I have tended to see is when your founding team is very heavily product and engineering, they tend to give away revenue too early. They tend to say, I don't want to do this marketing garbage. I don't want to do this marketing bullshit. I don't want to do this sales garbage. Not for me. And so they'll hire on an agency or a VP of sales from somewhere and not understand by the very nature of what you're doing, unless you have the knowledge to systematize your sales processes up front. When you hire somebody on, they'll be worse at it than you are. They won't really grok your product as well as you do. And they may, you hear all the time, a CEO complains, I hired a VP of sales or a VP of marketing. 6 months have gone by, nothing has changed. My business is just bleeding money now because I've got this expensive hire on my org chart. How do you, as a product-led founder, we'll get to business-led in a minute, as a product-led founder, take an action to make sure that when you're saying, all right, I've built a product, I know it works, I've got a few customers, I want somebody to really solve my revenue scaling problem. What do you look for in that first person to try and make sure that you're not hiring the wrong person from the beginning?
Yeah, it would take a step back and ask there why you don't have that person on the founder level. And if you don't, how you can make this hire become your part of your management, board, equity, and so on. If you don't give equity to someone, you're always going to get a job. But the moment the person has stake at your company, they will actually become a higher performer ultimately. So let's just assume that you have a business co-founder. Is this business co-founder can teach the next person you hire? That's actually goes back to understanding your limitations. If you're a business co-founder, or do you able to teach the next revenue generating person? And I'm saying teaching this is a complex thing. If somebody is doing business development and sales for 10, 15 years, they may not be able to teach the new person. They are called this level of know-how is so high that they're unconsciously competent, meaning that they're unconscious about why they do things already, and they're so competent they can't even explain why they're doing it. So they're not going to be able to train the junior salesperson at all. The junior salesperson will feel there's a gap, cannot execute what the founder is saying. It's going to be a disappointment, even though you hire the best talent. So it goes back, understanding your own competencies. If you have a business co-founder, is this business co-founder can really teach somebody, hands-on work with somebody, pair up with somebody, or just able to maybe do high-level things. So what I think the failure number one begins is not knowing how the dynamic gonna be. So, and what kind of salesperson you hire, a mid-level, a senior, a junior, and are you open to the input, or you just wanna say what you should be, what this person should be? So these are all questions before you even start looking for this revenue generating person. And I'm saying this from experience with so much recruitment background, building my own company. Once up for, from ground zero, I had to rebuild the sales team 3 times. First sales team failed because we didn't have a brand strong enough for them to close anything, because they didn't have the title co-founder. That was good enough to fail right there, no matter how hard they tried. Second of all, we didn't even have a good training program for them to do. So when we hired junior ones, I realized I couldn't train them. I thought I could train them, but then I couldn't, because it was just too deep in it. And then a third time when we just, tried, I think we went too broad, and there was just too many different directions. We listened too much to them about what they wanted to do versus what we should be doing. So it's a little bit of a balance on this, but it's something that you may be able to do multiple times, not even once or twice. So if someone says, I'm going to hire an engineer, usually you have the expectation of hire, stick, involve in product. In business, hire the first salesperson, a revenue generating person. I mean, you may need to hire, you try multiple times, and maybe your business direction will also change in the meantime. So I know that was a lot to say. So maybe giving some tips. Maybe approach every revenue generating person with a little bit of a talent pool approach. Is this person gonna able to help me now, or maybe later, if not now? Because your business may not be ready for that kind of salesperson yet. So don't think of how you can transactions, how this person can help me today. Maybe with the mindset of how this person can help me later on differently. So you're already looking at the sales and the marketing and the revenue generated people with a broader eye. I think that helps.
Gotcha. I do definitely think, and this is super common in my experience, is a product founder who is relatively senior, right? Maybe they have, I don't know, 5-10 years of experience at a blue chip company, a bank, or one of the FANG companies or something. They've got the pedigree of, great, I'm used to running big teams, but I'm not so high up the chart that I don't still code. And so the technical founder will put together an MVP, get something working, and then say, great, this is working. I'm going to hire in, once I've sold my first couple of clients on this, somebody who's a VP or a C-suite at a big company, and bring them in, and not realize that one of the common problems in marketing and sales in particular is the skill set of a C-suite or VP level role at these companies is very, very different than the skill set of somebody who actually executes on marketing. And so if you recruit senior person in to your company, and maybe they're not a co-founder, they're a later hire, they get some smaller fraction of equity, they're less motivated, whatever it is, they won't necessarily dive in and do hands-on work. And I've seen a whole lot of startups I've worked with where the business founder, or co-founder, I should say, business co-founder, is unsatisfied. The tech founder and the business co-founder aren't seeing eye to eye because of these problems. And so their tech co-founder goes off on their own and says goodbye to the business co-founder. I think if you're building on the product side, it's really important to note, if you hire senior, make sure they're still willing to do execution. if you're hiring junior, the other big fail I see is founder-led sales is so different than salesperson-led sales. And your salesperson you bring on board, you built your startup for 3 years, you can, by simple breadth of your knowledge of your problem, convert people to sell. But if you don't have a system where this is the script, if you follow this, this works this percentage of time, your junior salespeople can't do the job because they won't be able to develop their own script either. That's on the product-led side. I think it's also worth talking about on the business-led side of things, right? You've got a business co-founder. They are growing their business. You're able to make money. I've got 2 startups I advise right now where the bandwidth on growth is the business co-founder inability to scale up the business side of things. How do you help unblock the business co-founder to make it where they are able to build a revenue team to support?
I was taking notes what you said because something came to mind that I wanted to say first to really help. So let's address that a little bit later. When you look for your salespeople, you right away have to differentiate 3 different things when you screen them. What's their natural market? Because maybe they have connections they can bring to you. How their ability to learn your business and qualify the opportunity, and so on and so on and so on. And the bigger thing is this personality has the right personality to long-term prospect. So meaning long-term getting you the new leads. And so that's what's their practice. So there's a short-term, mid-term, long-term thing. And the short-term, obviously, who they know. Mid-term, how they're getting the deals for you. And the long-term, meaning that once they run out of their market, how they can generate new things. And of course, this is where sales and marketing ends up partnering up, because that's how you get the best result. Most companies don't know how to screen for this. So they don't even know. Like they don't have tools. So if you don't have tools how to screen that, it's easiest how many people you know, right? Yeah, but how many people you know that could be suitable for my company as a lead? And let's try to qualify that a little bit further. Is already like a homework exercise that is that part of the interview process? Is that comes after the process? Is that something that I'm willing to pay for the person to look into that? Is the person comfortable with that, and so on, or things like that. So that's maybe most companies do that, and that's an easy thing. Then try to see how the salesperson will able to kind of get traction and maybe qualify an opportunity better, or close an opportunity better, or handle the client, or upsell better, right? Things like that. And of course, that we do once you're there on the job, so you can't really do an interview. And of course, for the third one, is this person going to be long run, have the personality to open their wings? Personality, I have a tool for that. We've been talking about predictive index a lot. So that's a low-hanging fruit to test. Most companies don't do that because they don't have a tool. So that's back to your question. I'm sorry, you said, would you mind repeating the question? It was about founders.
Sure. So when you've got a business founder and they are generating revenue, but you need to scale up their ability to generate more, right? You have to get them a team. 2 startups I'm advising right now, but this is also pretty common broadly. Business founder, the revenue generating founder, has a really hard time knowing when and how to start to get support under them to make this business able to grow again. How do you recommend the business founder and the other founders in the company help understand this blockage and solve it?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because often it kind of goes back to the business owner may not know what really their bottleneck is. It's kind of funny. I had an earlier conversation this week, even today, about business owners who not knowing their blind spot. So they think they need leads, and then they let the salesperson get new leads, and then they just end up not closing business. So why the revenue is not happening? They may realize, I actually need help qualifying the client more, or I need really a new something in order to close that revenue. So So what I'm trying to say is going through the sales cycle completely and identify if we have 2x growth here, are we getting able to handle that? If you have, all the way to invoice, then you have an understanding of what impact do you have with sales and where the salesperson can really help. Because in the process, in the new client process, you can do a lot of things on the sales side, almost overlapping to customer service side, and so on. And it's not just okay, bringing me new leads, right? And then, of course, the cost per lead is like a big question mark right away. Was this the most effective way to getting the leads as well? So what I'm trying to answer your question is most founders don't do this exercise before they hire. And so every time they come to me to hire and I ask them these questions, you get almost a little bit of a confusion. Is why do you ask about me? I try to hire somebody.
Okay. That's a real good point. I like that. And it is super common, I think. I hear all the time. I'm sure you do too. If I can just get the prospect on the phone with me, I can close them. Right? And so the issue is to them, I just need more leads so I can get folks on the phone. And then I had a space of time earlier this year, right? For the first half of this year, I closed like 8% or 5% something of my sales calls. Just shatteringly bad. Awful. And fortunately, I've seen this problem enough where I didn't go, I just need to 10x my pipeline. Instead, I went, I'm the revenue generating engine for my business, and I'm not doing it. I broke it. How do I address that? And so for me right now, one of the things I'm working on is I've got a machine that now is working again, and it needs to be systematizable enough. I'm the business owner, right? I'm also the product owner because small company, but I'm trying to make that system something I can hand off to somebody who's mid-level, right? Somebody who's got a couple years of experience and say, this script works. If I can book you 6 calls a week, I know you'll close 1. Because if I book me 6 calls a week, I'll close 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. Whatever. I know that my sales hire won't close as well as I do. But the way to look at this, whether you're a business founder or a product founder, yes, your sales hires won't close as higher ratio as you. I generally say 50% to 30% as well as the founder. But if you have a machine that can feed them leads and they can reliably close a third as well as you do, then 100% of that business wasn't work you had to close. And that's when, as you mentioned before we started streaming, you've transitioned from a job that's 100% commission to a business.
Yeah. Correct. I think 2 things came to my mind right away. When you have somebody who you hire, whose closing ratio is not going to be the same as a founder, how you can keep that person motivated so they don't see that as I'm not that good,
Good point.
Because that's the goal. Like, how can you, like, out of the gate motivate that person that fractional result that they're bringing in is also good. So often companies can maybe look at their sales cycle and say, do I really pay the person well when it comes to, is it lining up with their activity? So that's why I called on purpose the activity, because getting a monthly pay and getting a commission is nothing to do with your activity. It's just how corporate people do it, and people assume that's the best way. No, activity. Do you get a little bit of a maybe bonus, or call it, payment when you book a meeting? How about when you sign an agreement, right? So when you took a little bit of some of the steps from the sales cycle and award it, then people realize they're not getting a salary, they're getting a fractional activity payout, and that ends up becoming a lot more suitable for small companies. I give a very good example. Somebody said, how about I pay you hourly as well, but only if you actually prospecting and adding new leads to a CRM, because salespeople hate to do that. And the moment that the moment the activities of capturing the prospects and putting that in a system is hourly paid, the salespeople ended up doing it. Otherwise, they were just, I'll do this tomorrow. I'm just gonna log the opportunity, right? So, but then how many prospects led that opportunity? The ratio there is so important. So how you can capture that is by basically saying, you know what, for hourly work, when you prospect, but you can only talk to new people, new customers. Current, already pipeline opportunity, not loggable. You need to do that because you get, a meeting bonus or a contract bonus or a commission for that. So you can only log that fraction of the time that is a new conversation, a new email, a new reach out, a new thing. And you know what's the most important part? After a while, a busy salesperson realizes they don't log time anymore. That means they don't talk to new people anymore. And they are like, well, that's okay. Maybe you're closing your opportunities, but if you constantly have that, your pipeline in the long run will decrease because you don't
Will
talk
dry up,
to
yeah.
people anymore. So that was a little bit of I've learned this from a partner company 3 years ago, and it was like a light bulb on me. Even though I was trying to make motivational and good compensation for salespeople for many years, when someone said you can log the time when you actually have a new interruption, but only with new interruption you can get this hourly rate, which is at the end of the month you add it up, and that's maybe $100, €100, maybe it's 500, whatever it is. But that was very interesting when somebody started to do that, and I started to do that, and since then I'm doing it. It's a very good way of measuring your new conversation.
Interesting. That's cool. So I think this is maybe the right time to bring this up, right? As you are, whether you're product led, whether you're business led, however your business has reached its first inflection point where you're going, all right, I'm going to hire someone. Hiring is always risky, and everybody has their horror stories about the bad marketer or the bad person that they hired. How do you de-risk this hiring process so that you are confident going into this that your employee is going to be a good fit and is going to really put the fuel on the fire to make your business make more money?
Yes, and I think maybe the used word hire need to be broadened here, because the moment you realize that the type of employment or the type of engagement is flexible, you're reducing your risk. So how you reduce the risk right away is not really necessarily put a payroll person, employment. How about a partner? How about a freelancer, part-time, so on. So the moment you go, type of employment doesn't matter. The value matters, and happiness, balance, win-win situation. So the person is happy work for you, you're happy with the performance, and then it's compensated well. Then that's how you de-risk already of the how can I get why I'm disappointed, right? And I think when you're thinking of needing a revenue generating person, if you think of asking the candidate right away, what would be the ideal setup for you? You will be surprised what the candidate is saying. They might say part-time, this and this, just initially get to test my feet on the water would be the best. So it might be a win-win solution to start with a part-time fractional, trial, week and month, right? Some people do a lot of interviews for salespeople. I'm thinking, why do you do that? Why don't you just go join a meeting? What are you afraid from? I actually had a candidate who was like, you know what? After 5 minutes, how about I bring you into a client meeting, or you can bring into your opportunity pipeline because you know somebody, and let's just try to see how we work together right away in the sales process. I pay for your time, same way as you would for anybody, fractional hours. So you save the interview time, and let's face the reality here. Every salesperson will be able to sell themselves. So what's your really big...
They should.
Yeah, exactly.
If they can't, don't hire them.
Exactly. So what's your expectation of your interview? To impress you? Okay, then the candidate impressed you, let's say. So if you, after 5 minutes, ask a question, what's your ideal form of compensation, engagement, and so on? First question should be, can we do this today? Can we do this tomorrow? Can we create a client situation or a revenue generating activity instead of keep asking questions from each other, that instead of role playing or interviewing in real life, we are testing?
Wow.
And maybe you can actually do that. So part of your interview process is paid revenue generating activity, and you're not running around trying to do this. Okay, now the person is on board. Now I'm going to train the person, and now I'm going to generate revenue. So how you de-risk how to make money early by already taking maybe an interview process into a revenue generating activity. That's how you de-risk it.
That's pretty cool. I have heard of, I mean, I do trials extensively with crowd tamers. But to say, particularly in the sales role, right? How much interviewing do you need? Show me your skills really early on. That's really interesting. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Now imagine that, and I'm sorry to go back to, we are talking about product focused, business focused. If you have product focused founders, you're not going to be able to do that, because nobody's going to be able to, like, how I'm going to interview the salesperson while we're going into the process, because we're all product people. You should just bring us a client, right? But if you have a co-founder who actually willing to take the steps of joint field work, joint meetings, doing this together, then you certainly jump into that and say, how about instead of doing all these back and forth interviews, just try. Let's jump and swim together, see what happens. And then after every client meeting, we did like a half-hour sync up evaluation, so on, next steps, homework, things like that. And of course, before, a little bit of prep. And of course, if any business generating person not willing to do an NDA right out of the gate, then why are you even talking, right? So you just do that so that you're not have to worry about these things. And you can always, if somebody's hang up on formalities, the person doesn't have an email address and things like that, you can always create. It's very, very quick. So somebody was asking me, yeah, but I'm not comfortable. Person is not part of my organization. How it's going to look like? You can always say the person is part of your, a new person.
He's a consultant,
right? Yeah. And you will be surprised that after a meeting that maybe you bring the new candidate to, the candidate after the meeting almost every time said, oh, I know two person like this who we can talk to next week. Based on today's conversation,
nice.
That's where you start revenue generating meetings that a new person will be introduced to your company, because the candidate will think of, oh, actually, I can bring two more meetings to the table like this. So that's how I think you can kind of do this dynamic.
Gotcha. I like that. So trials, fractional work, right? Mm-hmm. Definitely. Particularly, I have found you can get some pretty senior people these days to come do a little bit of fractional work. They've got a gig somewhere that pays them, I don't know, whatever, low six figures, right? And the job's fine, but it's soul sucking. And you say, look, come work for me. I can't hire you at mid six figures. I'll go broke. But let me pay you $150 an hour or $200 an hour or whatever. Come get you on, 2 or 3 calls a week for a couple weeks. Once you really start to know, once you find somebody who is, mid-level with the right Rolodex, right? LinkedIn network these days. Them then saying, look, I'm paying you hourly rate plus this commission on the deals you bring to me. Right now for crowd tamers, I have 3 people who have got that set up, right? Hourly rate, whatever, it's high enough where I don't want to waste their time. They feel like their time is valued. But the real value for me is if they go, oh, I know George, he'd be perfect for you. They'll work the deal, hand it over to me, and then know they'll get X percentage of the deal closed. And I'm a relatively high ticket offer, so they're happy to get that chunk, right? That fractional work, you can get a lot of people doing that for you and not have the burden of salary. Like you mentioned, Tomas, we need to think beyond just the strictures of W-4 employment.
Yeah.
And you can get a lot of really good people in very low risk that way.
Exactly. And sorry to interrupt. Within just in the commission, you can even split the commission. Is this person who is generated the lead for you? It's maybe 20 or 25% of the commission. the part of the whole commission to pay out. Is this person help you to qualify it? That's another piece. Is this person help you to close it? That's another piece. Is this person maintains the relationship after the deal is closed? That's another piece. So that's how you can give out fractional commissions so that you're not overpaying somebody, but you're avoiding at the right level. That's maybe the mechanism into it.
And that is, I think that putting into, particularly for sales, but also for marketing, you can do KPI-led evaluations, right? Having somebody who you're saying, look, this is, whenever you're on the business side of a company, because the work you do is this giant machine that grinds leads up into sausage, saying, hey, look, you are compensated for how efficiently you grind people up into meat, is like, it's fair. In a way that, like, it's a terrible idea to tell a developer, we'll compensate you based off of how many lines of code you write or how many bugs you fix or any of these. People don't think of it this way. I really do think that development of hardware and software is way more creative than most of the creative industry, right? Marketing is creative, but it's kind of also color by numbers, wrote, run a campaign to reach this end. A whole lot of development work is, no one's ever solved this, go figure it out. And that means you can't tie that to your work led to exactly this amount of value. But marketing and sales, you can say, oh, we currently have 100 leads a month. You've doubled it. So we have now 200 sales qualified leads a month. Awesome. It's worth X amount to us that you did that, and we will pay you a third of X amount. There you go, right? That kind of thing is really easy to meter for. And particularly when you're doing fractional work or contract work, setting things up that way let you attract a way higher bar of talent than you normally could. And you bring in one or two very senior people. They use their network. They close you some business. You start to see systems you can build. You can then pay your senior people, right? We need the script now that we bring in some junior people to run the sales calls for. You can assemble all of this. You just have to be willing to broaden your horizons on what acceptable ways to employ people are. And when you are a product founder or when you are a business founder, the strategy you bring to the table is going to change. And I work a lot with product-led founders. They very frequently don't understand the need to have a say in the strategy of how the revenue engine is built. They tend to want to just say, I'm hiring a specialist for this. Not my problem. And that would be like for the product-led founder saying, hey, you're going to bring somebody in to install some framework for all of your code generation from here. Maybe it's React, maybe it's Electron, maybe it's whatever. Or we're going to bring in a new IDE, right? Your whole team's going to have to switch to this. They'd be like, of course you can't do that. That's important. Likewise, the structure of how you make money for your business is super important. And even if it's not your expertise, you really need to understand what's happening and why, so that you can say, that's not how I want this business to grow. I've worked with many clients in the past who found somebody to do cold email. They hated cold email. They hated the agency they used. They got sold by somebody who was a good salesperson. The results weren't great, and now they're like, all marketers are crap. No, they're not. But you wanted to give away the problem, and then you didn't like the solution.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm interrupting you a little bit, but there is an easy ratio for founders to calculate how much sales and marketing budget they should be getting. They look at their current revenue. They're looking at how much commission they would have paid out for that. Hopefully there's still profit left, right? Then yeah, exactly. Then you take exactly 20% of that or 25% of that and say that should be for prospecting, because that is for getting the new opportunity. Part of that marketing, part of it natural network of the salespeople. And at the end of, obviously qualifying another piece, closing another piece. At the end of the process, when you say who keep in touches with the client, that is also a marketing budget, a marketing person, newsletters and so on, and all the things goes into that, or a customer success, customer service person, or the salesperson itself. So if you take basically your full revenue, take a part of calculate your commission, and you take 30, 40, maximum 50% of that, that is your part of that. Half of that is actually your marketing budget. So it's actually to 15, 20% of your total commission that you would pay out for that revenue. And that's a comfortable place to start. And if if the salesperson actually gets a lead as well, the big ratio is like how many lead is online lead coming from marketing or event lead or something, and how many is their own generated lead. So if you let a salesperson fly on their own and no marketing help, that's going to be tough. Plus, you're missing on opportunities. It's almost a good balance. 70-30 or 50-50 would be ideal, but at least 70-30. If it's more like 80-20, you're actually missing something. So the salesperson should feel that it's always between 70-30, 30-70.
Yeah. I do also think, and you brought up a good point, a lot of companies see customer success, customer service as a cost center.
Yeah.
And it really should be expected to be a revenue center.
Mm-hmm.
The last 3 companies I was at as like their full-time CMO, I ended up owning customer success. And in every case, it is pretty easy to show revenue growth from landed accounts. That's customer success. And then you can set targets for the CS team and say, look, leading indicators are things like CSAT and NPS. And then lagging indicators are expansion revenue. And if, this CS agent you talk to has really high NPS and they tend to drive expansion revenue also, it's like, great, awesome. You get 10% of that expansion revenue every month that's coming in because you generated it. And then it becomes super apparent, just like a salesperson who's driving discovery and new deals, customer success person is driving retention and expansion. And you can say, well, then this is clearly a revenue center because we had, $80,000 this month generated from upsells, contract renewals, and expansion revenue that we wouldn't have had if someone didn't own it. And a lot of my founders are way too early to have separate departments for each of these, right? If you're a more established company, CS is often like bucketed off in the corner. Oh, they're just, we have to do this so we don't get review bombed on Google, or we have like whatever. It's we don't want it, but it's required to make a business go. The easiest person to sell to is your existing client base. Your CS team can make you more money every month than your sales team does.
Exactly. It's a 360 tie back. So, but I think it's maybe a commonly used word. Sales is not a transaction, it's building relationship, because building relationship with your current clients will give you the reoccurring revenue or the growth and so on. So that's, again, with a business mindset co-founder, it's an obvious thing. With a product mindset co-founders, maybe not an obvious thing. But that's why you want to have a business or sales guy, part of your equity pool, or part of your part of a company, so that these conversations can happen on a monthly basis or at least on a quarterly basis. Like, are we doing the right thing? What's the big picture here? And how we can make this an ongoing spiral that is just going up and up. And I'm saying this because what ends up also sometimes happening, the salesperson brings in new deals. It's happening, and the salesperson feels that we start losing deals, and we don't really look at why we lost that. Lost meaning having a retrospective of, was that an operational loss? Like from an operational point of view, we couldn't fulfill the order on time, or competition, or what was the reason? Can we do something better internally to make sure that it is, everybody says, yeah, of course we look at that. Is there any concrete step that was actually the outcome of that? So that with that in mind, you're growing your company, and that's why looking at every time the bottleneck. Can every department take the 2x growth? Is that gonna be a problem? And you do that early, not when it happens, because when it happens, you're already like, oh my God, I need somebody here. I need to find somebody here. That takes time. that means that bottleneck will hold your business without growth. So that's why
Mhm.
you're checking this 2x growth every time in every department. So you can identify it early when it's only 1.5x, and you can find somebody to make sure that you have buffer to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's
There's
what
a
good
good callback to episode 2 of Raise2Launch podcast. A good CEO shouldn't be busy, right?
Exactly. Thanks for remembering. 100%. If you're maxed out on time, you're not going to be able to improve anymore. Same
Yeah.
happens with every department, not just the CEO.
Same everywhere. Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. So I do think that's some very interesting strategy and tactics on how to de-risk the hiring, on when to bring somebody on board, and to how, as a product founder or as a revenue founder, think about the right way to start to grow and scale. One other thing, just like my rule of thumb, broadly applicable, you can identify your startup generally as either product led or sales led. Product led, the expectation is people get some sort of free trial or easy onboarding and are expected to pay on their own. Human interaction shouldn't drive most signups to buy. I would note, for every product led company out there, you will have a sales function as well. Because, like at Unito, where the last company I was CMO, 100% product led, but every enterprise deal that walked in the door with the email address was at and then pick a Fortune 500 company, you better believe the founder is going to reach out and say, hey, I love that you signed up for a free trial. How can I help? And so product led, but enterprise sales is happening. And one of the things that Unito had to do to scale was build enterprise sales. Because if, I don't know, random sexy mommy 69 at hotmail.com signs up, no human's going to talk to you, right? But if
Not about
Tim
business.
Cook, if Tim Cook at apple.com signs up, yeah, we're going to give you a call, right? And product-led growth needs a marketer first to drive that awareness, but then very possibly your next person is customer success to take that Tim Cook at apple.com and say, hey, you've signed up. What do I help you build? And in my experience, it's better to start that conversation with CS than it is with sales. When I was at Udito, when I was running the marketing and the CS teams, we had a sales team too, but we found like 90% of enterprise deals won started with the CS team reaching out, not the sales team reaching out. But when
Yes.
you're sales led, this flips, right? You need marketing to drive awareness, always, but then a salesperson takes the lead. This is when a sales led team is not sign up, try the product by yourself. It is book a sales call, see a demo, sign a contract, begin using the tool. And so then you have to have a salesperson early to take that workload away from your business founders. And so which way you build is which way your product is built to grow.
It's super correct. I may just want to add something to that. Is your product is a solution where a client can really decide is this is what they really need, or the client will think it's a patch solution and they get something what they really don't need. So what I'm trying to say is we assume the client knows what they need, but that's not always the case, right? So you can actually, even with marketing on the website, pre-qualify a few questions of why are you buying this? Why are you signing up? Because if they sign up kind of online and maybe lose the customer months later, you don't know what really they try to achieve and why they tried your product. So again, ask yourself the question, does my clients really know why they are actually doing this? Or is this just I don't know, it's purchasing becomes such a sometimes unconscious decision. Well, I'm just going to look for something, sign up, try for a week, see how it is, and so on. And we're living in this world where everything is bombarded to us. But a few qualifying questions before sign up is a useful thing. And it's totally a marketing side thing. If your business does not have that, you're missing some info. And of course, if your salesperson is already involved from the beginning, helping in the process, that's great, but you may not. It depends on how tricky is your product or how customize that product because it may not require a salesperson. That's all depends on the complexity of your sales cycle and your product. Yeah.
I just had a call earlier today with somebody who's a salesperson, and she's like, marketing is so hard to deal with because they don't want to be told they're wrong. And I'm like, speaking as a marketer for many years, salespeople are hard to deal with because they don't want to be told they're wrong. And people set up this divide, this fake split between marketing and sales and say, hey, look, we're going to pull this apart and then we're going to fight each other. And it's really important to know it's true in a small business, and it should be true in a larger business. They're fundamentally the exact same problem. I'm trying to get people who need the thing I'm selling aware of it and willing to buy. And when marketing and sales diverge is when you set the wrong incentives. You say marketing brings 800 leads this month and sales closes 50. And those are their two scores. And what you don't realize is then marketing might bring in 800 crap leads and you say sales is bad at their job. Or it might be the sales team could close 50 if marketing only brought in 400 of the right lead. And so then what you measure for is what you will eventually get, but be careful what you ask for, you just might get it. And don't have them responsible for a piece of the pie. That's part of what they care about. But overall, there's one number, right? How much money did we make this month? How did you contribute to that? And if you didn't, how do you fix that next month? Build your business with that mantra in mind, guiding everything on the business side. And then you don't have that misalignment of, like, I remember when I was CMO at Contact.io, we had an event, we got 200 leads, had this big event. Marketing was super proud of ourselves because we're selling, SME enterprise, 200 leads. Awesome. The sales team gets the leads for like 2 weeks. And the VP of sales comes to me and says, Trevor, these leads are all crap. And I went, excellent news, Philip. And he's like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, so we can get 200 leads with no problem. Now we have to figure out what the right leads are.
Yeah.
And getting a marketing team that says that is important, and not a marketing team who says, no, you're stupid because you couldn't close the leads, right? My end goal was make the business money. Philip's end goal was the same. So we were able to have the conversation and then make the business money. Awesome. He didn't need 200 leads. He needed 40 that were the right ones. So, okay, let's not hold an event with 200 people where he then ties up his team for 3 weeks to unqualify every lead. Have an event with 20 people twice a month, and suddenly we're making money.
Yeah. I've heard this very short story from a very good sales leader, and I keep coming back to this every year, that the good salespeople are not just they are characters. So you need to not try to break their wings off. You need to just let them be who they are. So when it's hard for you to manage your salesperson, think about it. You have this person because it's a strong character. Good salespeople will always going to be hard to deal with. So your goal as a CEO or C-level or founder, how you can best bring out the value or the revenue or the productivity from this person. And it's usually not me telling the person what to do, because you even said salesperson don't really like to be told what to do. They are
That's correct.
Often opposite end, but you hire that personality because you want the proactiveness. You want them to do it on their own. They want to try to figure it out through their own. So you need to be a little bit more flexible with these kind of things and not try to put them into like a box. You just basically demotivate the salesperson. So It's almost like a monthly, weekly thing with the sales one-on-one. It's like, hey, how can we support you better? How we as a company can make you more successful? It's not like we're telling you what to do. A salesperson who's really good should know what they need. They shouldn't be told what to do.
Yeah. And you build the right incentives, you build the right motivation intrinsically in comp, in how you hire and what you're doing. And then you're right. You don't have to tell the salesperson what to do. They will seek out their highest revenue generating opportunity themselves.
Exactly. Especially
and honestly, as a C-suite, that's what you want, right? The less work I have to manage my team, the happier I am.
Yes, exactly.
All righty. As always, Tomas, I appreciate your time this afternoon. Hopefully, some of the listeners found this instructive or useful for them. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, Tomas, to talk more about this, how do they find you?
They found me on LinkedIn, T. Holzer. And I'm very open to ask for questions. And thank you for having me here. Always like talking to you. See you in 2 weeks.
It's always great seeing you in 2 weeks. You can, of course, find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Trevor Longino, or crowdtamers.com. Thanks to everybody, and we will see Tomas again in 2 weeks' time.
Thank
See
you.
y'all.
Have a good,
Bye.
productive week. Cheers. High five.